Emre Toros from Turkey, thank you for accepting this interview and welcome.
Thank you very much.
How do you see the growth of darts in your country and what are the biggest challenges preventing it for reaching a higher level?
Well, it was like 30 years ago when we first started to play. A couple of people, like it was like a handful of people, like 30 or 40. It just happened to be growing fast. After those years, after 30 years, now it's more than 1,000 people playing darts in Ankara, only in Ankara, not in Turkey. It used to be bigger, but then, I don't know, but the organization of darts in Turkey is under state control. So it is an official sport. And that sometimes it causes problems because you want to do some stuff that in order to develop your game, your team, the sport, but then you have to take the official permission from the Federation of Turkish Federation of Darts. Sometimes it's just created barriers for us to develop the game in Turkey. But I mean, to be honest, it's still a sport, an official sport in Turkey, and it is an advantage, of course, at the same time for most of the people. I think it's a natural process, so you cannot basically, if you have good players, it develops fast. If you have like kind of European champions or world champions, whatever it is, if people see darts players on TV, and then they sympathize with those, and then actually the game grows. It just happened for every other sport in Turkey as well. And it's for darts. I mean, let's think about Netherlands, Holland, and they have big names in darts, so it's huge in Netherlands. So one of the things that Turkey misses is that big names in darts. So, but it's a natural process, and it's a fun game, and you do not need to invest a lot to play the game. So it just develops over the time, I guess.
So it's an organic growth.
It is. Usually it is, yes.
Are there enough local and international tournaments for male players in Central and Eastern Europe? And what improvements would you like to see in the tournament structures in Turkey and abroad?
Well, actually there are more than enough. Lots of tournaments all over Europe, Western, Eastern, Central. I mean, so and it's not only for male players. I mean, when you have a tournament in darts, it's usually for both genders. So it is like, you have males and females working together, playing together. So, I mean, there are more than enough tournaments, I believe. So the thing is, I mean, darts is an activity that creates a kind of wealth at the same time. And as much as it grows economically, then as much as it grows, it creates wealth, then the players will gain money as well. So they earn money from the tournament. So that's one of the ways to enlarge its impact. But it's not easy because, I mean, in order to create some economical input for the game, you have to be, it should be on TV, basically. So it is not very easy to take any kind of an activity on TV. So you have to do some special agreements with the TV channels and some sponsors as well. That might be the solution for turning back to your first question. That might be another thing to expand the game. But I believe there are lots of tournaments, more than enough at the moment.
What is the role of sponsors in developing a
Well,
player?
I mean, yes, that's how it works basically. I mean, for every sport, it's not only for darts. If you check every single sport, I mean, there are some investors in the game, in those games. So. Of course, these investors basically do not invent for nothing. They do their advertisement, they do their PRs, and so on and so forth. It's kind of a package. So no one gives you money for nothing. So then for the other sports, like the big sports like football, basketball, and so on and so forth, they're so huge and they can actually access lots of sponsors. But darts is not like that. It is kind of a kind of an not sport, an activity. It's a kind of a debatable thing. But then, I mean, the sponsors for the game are kind of limited. The ones who will be interested in darts are kind of limited. whom they might be, like kind of the producers, like the darts producers, the material producers, the big names, and then the beverage companies, basically. And this is not very easy at the same time, at least for Turkey. We used to work with one of the biggest brewery companies in Turkey, Efes Pilsen, but now they cannot sponsor us, so it's just forbidden now. So it's not. This is the nature of the game, basically. I mean, if you check the sponsors abroad, they are usually the beverage companies, more or less the beverage companies. But if we manage to develop game into another level, the sponsors might be, if you take the game on TV, the other sponsors most probably will be interested in that one. So it's quite important. I mean, in order to expand the game, you should be having some sponsors. But then, at the same time, it is a private matter, basically. I mean, it's a kind of a business. You have to invest and stuff. It's not very easy to do such stuff in Turkey at the moment.
So you need sponsor to make the sports more visible, and to be more visible, you need sponsors. So
yes, I mean, it's
like
an
endogenous.
it's an endogenous process. Basically, you have sponsors. You make your game bigger. When it becomes bigger, the sponsors will gain more money. So it's just like a circle. So, but if you're under state control for such kind of an activity, what I mean by state control is that, for example, you cannot go and play in a tournament with a Turkish flag on your shirt. It is forbidden because it's a sport, an official sport. You can play backgammon because it's not an official sport in Turkey, and you cannot, when you have that flag on your shirt, it means that you are representing your country. And if you are representing your country, you should be kind of pass through some kind of tournaments. Then it's kind of complicated. So I don't know if we have done good, but we did this 30, 40 people at the very beginning of this stuff starting in Turkey. We approached the federation to include darts as an official sport. I don't know if we did good or bad. Now, like after 30 years, I'm not very sure if we did the right decision to do this.
But in order to make it bigger as a phenomenon, you need to find different strategies to approach, for example, young people. So my next question is, what do you think is needed to make darts more popular in this way and accessible for young and amateur players in Central and Eastern Europe?
Well, again, we have developed several projects about this. We try to introduce the game into the schools, basically, because you have to do some basic maths to play darts in the most popular version of the game. So it's just a fun game, basically. And then we try to capture the kids in primary schools, basically, or kindergarten kids even. So these might be some kind of solution. I mean, you can work with the ministries, Minister of Education, and so on and so forth. So that might be a kind of a solution. For youngsters, I don't know. I mean, because it's at the same time an indoor activity. This is an indoor activity, which is kind of, which limits your choices. For example, Ankara is a kind of a civil servant and a very dull city. You don't have many choices for entertainment in Ankara, right? And then it becomes bigger in Ankara. Darts becomes bigger in Ankara because of that. But it's not big in Istanbul because they have lots of other things to do, right? So that's something. So, and nowadays youngsters are not kind of limited as us, basically. I mean, still in Central and I can only talk about Turkey at the same time. I really do not know what's going on in Central and Eastern Europe about darts, but it's huge. It's huge. And it's not only steel tip, it's soft tip as well. So they have these both versions, especially in the Eastern Europe, including the countries like Serbia, Croatia. They're very, very good players in soft tip as well. So it is getting bigger, but the game, the nature of the game is kind of connected with pubs. When you talk about pubs, you talk about alcohol and drinking. But it's in the gene of the sport. I mean, you cannot take pubs out of darts. You cannot take darts out of pubs. So that's something. In order to, you do not have to. At the same time, you shouldn't be aiming to disconnect this line because it's the natural thing.
Και πως έχω κι αγάπη αληθινή. Τα πίστευα αυτά πριν σ' αντικρίσω και το μυαλό μου ανακατευθεί με σκέψεις πονηρές και λίγο αυτοκαταστροφικές. Σε γνώρισα και χώρισα, η λογική μ' αγνόησα, αντάλλαγμα μια βραδιά με σένα.
You should be kind of, developing some new strategies on top of these, like introducing the game to the schools. I don't know, basically, if you accept this as an official sport, you have a state sponsorship, but it's limited at the same time. So there should be a kind of a two-way activity with civil society organizations and the state at the same time, focusing on the youngsters.
Emre, good luck with your darts career and good luck with darts in Turkey, and teşekkür ederim for this interview.
I'll also, very grateful for you to, provide me this chance. Thank you very much.